You started with real energy. You had the idea, you had the plan, you had the feeling that this time was going to be different. And then, somewhere in the middle, something shifted. The excitement disappeared. The work stopped feeling meaningful, and you found yourself doing everything except the thing you were supposed to be doing. Most people call that laziness. It isn't. It's one of the most predictable patterns in the human brain, and once you understand it, it becomes much harder to fall for it again. Here's what's happening. When you commit to a new goal, your brain releases dopamine, not when you achieve the goal, but when you imagine achieving it. The fantasy of the finished product is neurologically rewarding before you've done a single thing. That's why starting feels so good. You're not motivated by the work, you're high on the potential. And potential has a shelf life. By the time you're deep enough into something that the real difficulty begins, when the gap between what you imagined and what you're actually producing becomes visible, the dopamine hit is long gone. Your brain has already started scanning for the next one. That's why, instead of working, you suddenly feel the urge to reorganize your desk, watch productivity videos, answer messages, or start planning an entirely different project. Not because those things matter, because your brain is looking for an easier reward. There's a paradox here. The point at which a task demands the most from you is often the point at which your brain's reward system offers the least. You're not weak for losing motivation in the middle. You're experiencing the most neurologically vulnerable moment in any creative or productive process. But here's the part almost everyone misses. It's not just about dopamine. Sometimes your brain is protecting you from finding out something uncomfortable about yourself. Finishing something makes it real. Real things can fail. Real things can disappoint. Real things can be judged. That possibility is uncomfortable enough that many people unconsciously choose to stay in the middle forever. Not because they can't finish, because finishing removes the protection. Psychologist Gabrielle Oettingen at NYU found that people who vividly imagine a completed goal without mentally confronting the obstacles between here and there are significantly less likely to achieve it. The brain, having simulated the reward, partially satisfies the drive to pursue it. Imagining success tricks the brain into feeling partially done. The fantasy did the work, so the actual work feels optional. So what do you actually do? Two things, precise ones. First, expect the dip and name it. People who are told in advance that motivation drops at a predictable point in the process are significantly more likely to push through it. Not because the dip gets easier, but because it stops feeling like a signal that something is wrong. When motivation disappears, most people interpret it as evidence the goal wasn't right for them. It isn't. It's evidence they've reached the hardest part. Naming it changes what it means. Second, shrink the next action to something almost embarrassingly small. Not work on the project. Open the document. Write one sentence. Spend 4 minutes. The motivational system in your brain responds to progress, not to plans. The smallest completed action produces more forward momentum than the most detailed intention. You don't need to feel motivated to move. You need to move to feel motivated. That order matters more than most people realize. The middle is where most dreams quietly disappear. Not because people aren't capable, because they mistake the dip for the end. Don't. If this helped you understand something you've been feeling, share it with someone who's stuck in the middle right now.